Hey, weather explorers! Have you ever seen a storm so big it can be spotted from space? That is a hurricane. And today we are flying right into one, safely, to learn how they work. First, what even is a hurricane? A hurricane is a giant spinning storm that forms over warm ocean water. It is like a huge engine powered by heat. Scientists have another name for it too, a tropical cyclone. That is the official term. But depending on where it happens, we call it different things. To get one started, you need 3 main ingredients. Number 1, ocean water that is at least 80 degrees Fahrenheit. That is bathwater warm. And it has to be warm deep down, not just at the surface. Number 2, warm wet air rising off the ocean. And number 3, winds high up in the atmosphere that help the storm start to spin instead of ripping it apart. Here is how it works. The warm ocean heats the air above it. That warm air is lighter, so it rises up, like a hot air balloon. As it rises, cooler air rushes in from the sides to take its place. Then that new air warms up and rises too. This keeps happening over and over, like a chimney pulling smoke upward. As the warm wet air rises, it cools off. And when warm air cools, the water in it turns into clouds. Really huge thunderstorm clouds. All those storms start to cluster together. Because the Earth is spinning, that cluster of storms starts to spin too. In the northern hemisphere, it spins counterclockwise. In the southern hemisphere, it spins clockwise. And when the winds in that spinning storm reach 74 miles per hour, boom, it is officially a hurricane. The center of a hurricane is called the eye. This sounds scary, but the eye is actually the calmest part. It can be 20 to 40 miles wide. Inside the eye, the sky can be blue and the winds can be almost still. Birds sometimes get trapped in the eye and fly around in it for days. But do not be fooled. Around the eye is the eye wall. That is where the most dangerous winds and rain happen. The eye wall is like a ring of angry thunderstorms circling the calm eye. It is a wall of clouds that can be 10 miles tall. If you fly through it, the plane shakes like crazy. That is why hurricane hunters, the brave pilots who study storms, call it the stadium effect. You break through the eye wall and suddenly it is calm and quiet in the eye, like walking into a stadium. Speaking of hurricane hunters, they are real scientists and pilots with the United States Air Force and NOAA. They fly special planes called WC-130J straight into hurricanes. Inside the plane, they drop little tubes called dropsons. These fall through the storm and send back data about wind, pressure, temperature, and humidity. That data helps forecasters make better predictions so people on land can get to safety. Without hurricane hunters, our hurricane forecasts would be way less accurate. Hurricanes have names so we can track them. Scientists make 6 lists of names that they rotate each year. They use names from a 2W, skipping Q and U and X and Y and Z because there are not many names that start with those letters. So one year might have Alex, Bonnie, Colin, and so on. If a hurricane is really bad and causes a lot of damage or deaths, that name gets retired forever out of respect. We will never see another Hurricane Katrina, Hurricane Sandy, Hurricane Maria, or Hurricane Ian. Those names are taken out of the list and replaced with new ones. How strong is a hurricane? We measure them with something called the Saffir-Simpson Hurricane Wind Scale. It goes from Category 1 to Category 5, based only on wind speed. A Category 1 is winds of 74 to 95 miles per hour. That can snap big branches, damage roofs, and knock out power for days. A Category 2 has winds of 96 to 110 miles per hour. That can uproot trees and do major roof damage. Category 3 is the first level called a major hurricane. Winds are 111 to 129 miles per hour. At that speed, whole houses can lose their roofs. Category 4 has winds of 130 to 156 miles per hour. that can tear off most roofs and snap most trees. Category 5 is the top. Winds are over 157 miles per hour. That is faster than a race car, and it can flatten whole neighborhoods. Only a few Category 5s have ever hit the United States. But here is something important. The category only measures wind. It does not measure how much rain or storm surge a hurricane has. Some Category 1 storms have caused more damage than a Category 4 just because of flooding. Which brings us to the biggest dangers. Hurricanes bring 3 big problems. First is storm surge. That is when the hurricane's winds push the ocean onto land like a giant bulldozer. The ocean can rise 20 feet or more in just a few minutes. That is taller than a 2-story house. Storm surge can flood entire towns, and it happens fast. Second is crazy heavy rain. A single hurricane can dump 2 feet of rain or more. That causes rivers to overflow and flood cities hundreds of miles from the coast. Third is tornadoes. Yep, hurricanes can spin up dozens of tornadoes inside them, usually on the right front side of the storm. So what is the biggest hurricane fact of all? The water is more dangerous than the wind. About 90% of people who get hurt or lose their lives in hurricanes get hurt by water, not by flying debris. Flooding from storm surge and rain is the #1 killer. That is why you should never drive through flooded roads. Just 6 inches of moving water can knock you down. And just 2 feet of moving water can carry away a car. Where do hurricanes happen? In the Atlantic Ocean and the Eastern Pacific, near North America and Central America. We call them hurricanes. But they are not just here. In the Western Pacific, near Asia, and places like the Philippines and Japan, the same storm is called a typhoon. In the Indian Ocean and near Australia, it is called a cyclone. Different name, same giant spinning storm. The only oceans that do not get them are the South Atlantic and the Southeast Pacific. The water there is usually too cold. Hurricane season in the Atlantic runs from June 1st to November 30th. That is when the ocean is warmest. But hurricanes can happen outside those dates too. The peak of the season is usually around September 10th. That is when the ocean has been heating up all summer and the conditions are perfect. Let's talk about size. Hurricanes are huge. The average hurricane is about 300 miles wide. That is like driving from New York City to Washington, D.C., but some are monsters. Typhoon Tip in 1979 was the largest tropical cyclone ever recorded. It was 1,380 miles wide. That is almost half the size of the United States. If it sat over Texas, its edges would touch Canada and Mexico at the same time, and they last a long time. Most hurricanes live for about a week, but Hurricane John in 1994 lasted 31 days. It traveled across the Pacific Ocean, changed names, and became both a hurricane and a typhoon. Hurricanes also have a smell. Sailors who have been through the eye wall say the air smells like ozone and salt. And they have a sound. People who have survived say it sounds like a freight train or a jet engine that never stops for hours and hours. What should you do in a hurricane? First, listen to adults, weather alerts, and local officials. If they say evacuate, that means leave. The best place to be is far away from the coast and in a strong building. Never play in floodwater because it can be dirty, have chemicals in it, or have hidden live wires that can shock you. And always have a safety plan with your family. Know where you would go and what you would bring. A good kit has water, food, flashlights, batteries, and a first aid kit. Hurricanes are scary and powerful, but they are also important for Earth. They are like the planet's air conditioner. They move heat from the warm equator toward the colder poles. Without hurricanes and typhoons, the tropics would get hotter and hotter, and the poles would get colder and colder. They help balance Earth's temperature. They also bring rain to places that need it. Some areas get half their yearly rainfall from just one hurricane. Scientists cannot stop hurricanes, and they cannot steer them. But we are getting better at predicting them. With satellites in space, buoys in the ocean, and hurricane hunter planes, We can now warn people days before a storm hits. 50 years ago, we only had a few hours of warning. Today we have a week. That saves thousands of lives. So the next time you see a hurricane on the news, spinning like a giant pinwheel on the weather map, you will know what is really happening. A giant heat engine, powered by warm ocean water, spinning over the sea, with a calm eye in the middle. A storm that can destroy, but also one that keeps our planet in balance. Stay curious, stay safe, and I will see you on our next weather mission.